Italy, of course, has to be the best, doesn't it? Hey, what's up? I'm Rafael di Furia, aka Rafi D is me, and I am back at it again on another beautiful Friday night. Firstly, thank you to those of you who have helped me to reach the 2,000 subscriber mark. Just hit it last Saturday night. So excited. I did a quick live stream on Facebook and Instagram shortly after. I just want to say thank you all to those of you who are supporting what I'm doing. I really do appreciate it. And also big thanks to those of you who came out to check my bonus video this week. But tonight we are back to the regular schedule, and we will be talking about applying for Jure Sanguinis or Italian citizenship in Italy versus applying abroad. At the end of the video, I'll go over what I personally would do if I were going through this process again. But before we get too deep into the video, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian citizenship, and more, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could give the video a like, I would really appreciate it because it does help the channel. So this subject is actually something we are going to come back to in the future plenty of times, so don't worry. If there is something that we don't speak about in the video today, we will probably cover it in a future video. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave that down in the comment section below here on YouTube. But one question that I get asked a lot: should I apply in Italy or should I apply abroad in the US or wherever the person may be? And the thing is that there is not one right answer for everybody. For somebody who's maybe a bit more like me and interested in actually living here in Italy, connecting with their roots and spending time here becoming a contributing member of Italian society, then I might say that applying here in Italy might be the best choice. Regardless, it's probably going to be the fastest way to do the process. But if you're not planning on that, then applying in the US might be the best choice. But that, of course, is going to depend on your comune. And of course, if you're going directly to the comune where your ancestors are from, then you're not going to have to deal with anybody in the middle, like a consulate or another comune. But even if you do decide to apply in Italy at a comune that is not the one where your ancestors are from, you should just be able to walk in there whenever you're ready and present your documents and make your petition right then and there. Whereas in the US, for example, most consulates are between about 1 and 2 years. However, at this point in time, if you're thinking about applying in LA, currently it's a 7-year wait just to get your first appointment. So if you take into account that it could take 1 to 3 years after that to finally have your recognition, it potentially could be a full decade before you're even recognized there. Hopefully they get some new people that are starting to work in there like they did in New York not so long ago, and hopefully they can start making more appointments sooner. But at this point in time, the list only seems to be getting longer. And even what I've been seeing from what people are reporting is it seems as though it's exponentially going up. Even just 2 months ago, it was a 6-year wait. Now it's a 7-year wait. And earlier this year, I was hearing people talking about 4 and 5-year waits. Everything depends on what situation you're in. Your financial situation, whether you're wanting to live in Italy or not, whether you're wanting to just even spend a bit of time in Italy or not. Or if your plan is to stay in your country where you are and just from time to time use your Italian passport. But one of the biggest caveats when it comes to applying in Italy, when you get your special permesso di soggiorno, this special permit of stay, is that during the process, you're not actually allowed to work here. So people who are maybe retired might be in a better position here. Or if you're younger, what might be good is to start thinking about building an online business for yourself or figuring how you can work online. But you don't want to be dealing with Italian or European customers. So whether you're from the US, Australia, Canada, Brazil, Argentina, wherever, if you can figure out having a location-free business that deals with the people from your country, that's probably going to be the best thing for you so that you can keep afloat while you're going through all of this. But then when we're talking more about the financial side of things, it's also going to change depending on where you are. But then if we're talking about the fees for actually going through this process, what you might pay for the consulate is going to be significantly more than what you might pay at a comune. And then the other thing to take into account is that if you are applying in Italy or another country that's not your own, you may need certified translations where, depending on the consulate you might be in your own country, you may or may not need certified translations, and some consulates actually will certify the translations themselves and you can just translate it on your own. Or maybe even get somebody on Fiverr to do it. But then also, of course, you have to get all the apostilles and certifications of all different sorts. And that's actually where some service providers can come in handy, is because they'll just take care of all of that for you, and it's a headache you don't have to deal with. I know it's a headache I wish I didn't have to deal with back when I was doing this. And of course, there are other things to take into account. Regardless of where you are going to need to be a resident there. This is one thing that may not make too much of a difference for some people. You're still going to have to live somewhere during this process, because regardless of where you apply during this process, it's not good to change your address. It could confuse things a little bit more than they need to be. One of the other things to take into consideration is if you are going to be applying in Italy and you don't speak Italian, it's really a great idea if you can have a service provider working with you. Even if you're not applying in Italy, it's still worth having somebody there that can help you through the process. And if there's anybody out there who has questions or looking for recommendations about that, always feel free to send me an email. You can go to rafaeldifuria.com/contact. But of course, there are a lot of great resources that are out there now, so it's much easier to do things DIY now. When I was going through this, I got a lot of really bad information, which ended up really making things much longer than they needed to be and much more expensive than they needed to be. But what if you have a 1948 case? Basically, your only choice then is to go through a tribunal in Italy, and you would need a lawyer for that. Or if you're from LA with their 7-year wait now, because it's more than 2 years, there is actually a process that you can go through the Italian courts. Again, you do need a lawyer for this, and if you need recommendations, always feel free to contact me. And you should be able to go through the process with an answer in a year. There are certain caveats, but that's maybe a better subject for a different video. And if you are applying in the US, it's known at some consulates, and you can find this throughout the Jure Sanguinis community, that there are some people who work there that are a little bit more difficult to deal with than others, and some consulates are a bit more strict when it comes to name discrepancies and all those sorts of things. You'll find some consulates are a little bit more lenient and some are far less lenient, and the same thing goes with applying in Italy. But if you're applying in Italy and there are any name discrepancies, you can actually physically be there with them to explain the situation. But when it comes to applying in Italy, you want to make sure you take care of this as soon as possible. You want to get your permesso di soggiorno immediately. You want to get your documents in immediately. I've heard a number of stories of people who didn't take care of this right away and they waited till the end of their tourist visa to go through this, but because of delays and asking for more documents and more documents and more documents, they ended up getting to the end of their tourist visa and that was it. They couldn't do anything. They were threatened with being deported from the country. There's one case I know of in particular where the people actually waited a few years before coming back to Italy, reapplied, and took care of everything. So technically, even though they were overstayers beforehand, because they're actually recognized under Jure Sanguinis, and technically because that actually means you're a citizen from birth, they would have never actually been overstayers to begin with. But until that can be proven or disproven, you're not going to be treated as an Italian national. And then I just have a personal opinion. If you're doing this whole Jure Sanguinis process, it's not the worst thing to get to know this wonderful land of ours, to really experience it for yourself and not just reminiscing on the beautiful memories that have been passed down to us, but making our own new ones. Even though the transition to making a life here has not been the easiest, for me it has been an amazing, absolutely amazing experience that I would not give up for the world. I feel as though it is such a blessing to be able to call this land home and to have this little red booklet that says I'm an Italian citizen and that I can be here as long as I want because it is my right to do so. I prefer generally to focus on la vita reale and not la bella vita, but there is something to be said for the pizza, the pasta, and the amore. And by living here, you do get to experience some of that. I realize for everybody it may not be practical or possible, but one way or another, if you have the possibility of getting Italian citizenship, I highly recommend doing it. But what would be the process that I would have personally chosen if I were to do this all over again? Where would I apply and how would I apply? If I were living in the Los Angeles area, I would very seriously consider applying in Italy one way or the other, whether it's through a tribunal or actually moving to Italy. But if I were living in some place like maybe Chicago, I would maybe consider doing it there if I had a job that I really loved and was really amazing, but I've always had the pull to come to Italy anyway, so even then, I would still probably end up applying here, but this is me personally. I'm not saying this is right for everybody. And knowing what I know now, I don't think I actually would have saved that much money by doing everything in the United States, maybe some money on translations, but otherwise it would have been very minimal. And I think the possibility of having the experience of being in Italy for a while is actually quite worth it. But if I were older, retired, and had a bunch of grandkids living around me and I wanted to be with them, then I might consider staying in the United States. But as a person who's in their 20s who is willing to restart everything and start from scratch, coming to Italy for me was the right choice. And even though I can go through a contract and read Italian well enough to understand what papers I'm signing, generally, I would end up working with a service provider who has a relationship with a comune or a network of comuni. Because in Italy, there are a lot of comune, especially smaller comune, that really have no clue about this process. Firstly, that it's even possible, or even if they have a slight idea that it's possible, they don't know how to do it. Thankfully, with all of the people who are doing this process, more and more are becoming educated in how to go through this. But there are still a lot of places where many people think that it's either illegal or not possible, or just completely a farce. Anyway, as per usual, this is an open conversation. If you've gone through this process, what did you do, and what would you do if you were to go through this whole thing again? If you're about to go through this process, what ways are you thinking about going through this process? And for those of you who are thinking about living in Italy, are you thinking about trying to take care of the process before you arrive? Or are you going to try to take care of the process once you arrive? And of course, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian citizenship, and more, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like, I would really appreciate that. And if you found any of my videos helpful, or you've just been entertained, or maybe if you feel like I've saved you a couple bucks in legal fees or even some time and headaches, please consider becoming a monthly patron. You can go to rafaeldifuria.com/Patreon. Or if you would like to help out one time, please visit rafaeldifuria.com/support. Or if you're interested in sponsoring a video, feel free to contact me through the links down in the more info section. Or if you have any questions about anything, also feel free to reach out to me over social media or email. And as always, I'm Rafael Di Furia, aka Rafi D is me. Thank you for joining me on another beautiful Friday night. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see y'all next Friday. Later.